The room is alive with anticipation, a gentle symphony of murmurs and laughter blending with the soft clinking of champagne glasses. Pastel decorations adorn the walls in powder blue and blush pink, a carefully orchestrated neutrality. The scent of vanilla cake lingers in the air, warm and inviting, wrapping around me like a meticulously crafted memory. My fingers rest lightly on my husband David's hand, his thumb grazing mine absent-mindedly. A tender gesture. If you didn't know better. If you didn't feel the way my stomach tightens beneath this floral dress. If you didn't hear the faint, uneven rhythm of my pulse against my ribs. I watch as my mother-in-law adjusts a ribbon on the gift table, beaming with delight. The chatter ebbs and flows, the room swelling with joy that isn't mine. David leans in, his breath brushing my ear as he whispers, "You okay?" His voice drips with concern, smooth as honey, practiced. I nod, I smile, I play my role. After all, isn't that what today is about? A perfect celebration, a moment to cherish, a future to unveil. That's what they think. That's what she thinks. And then she arrives. Her presence slices through the room like the first drop of red in a glass of white wine, subtle yet impossible to ignore. She's radiant, her dress cinched perfectly at the waist, her curls bouncing with every step. She glides through the crowd, laughing, placing a soft hand on shoulders, kissing cheeks, stealing moments of warmth. Her eyes find mine, and she smiles, too wide, too bright, too knowing. My fingers tighten around my champagne flute. Not yet. Not just yet. The warmth of the afternoon sun filters through the sheer curtains, dappling the floor in gold. Someone hands me a plate of hors d'oeuvres, but the thought of food makes my stomach churn. I catch my reflection in the mirrored cabinet across the room. My lips are painted in the same soft pink I wore on my wedding day. The irony doesn't escape me. David laughs beside me, his dimples deep, his teeth white. He looks happy. He looks proud. He has no idea. Applause ripples through the room as another gift is unwrapped. Tiny knitted booties, cream-colored and soft as a whisper. My mother gasps, pressing her hands to her chest, eyes glistening. The moment is sweet, picturesque, everything it should be. I nod. I murmur something about how adorable they are, but my focus is elsewhere. My pulse pounds in my ears, drowning out the laughter, the clinking of glasses, the sentimental chatter. I feel David's gaze flick toward me, studying my expression. He's wondering if I suspect something, if I've noticed the way his fingers twitch every time she laughs. I have. I reach for my glass, taking a slow sip of champagne. The bubbles fizz on my tongue, crisp and fleeting. Across the room, she is engaged in an animated conversation with my sister-in-law, her hands moving gracefully, her smile effortless. She's good at this, the performance, the pretending. I used to admire it, her charm, her ability to blend seamlessly into any group, any occasion. Now it sickens me. How long has she been slipping into my life like this? How many times have I looked at her and missed the signs staring back at me? My hand tightens around the delicate stem of my flute as I breathe in deeply, steadying myself. This isn't the time to slip, to let the rage bubbling beneath my ribs spill over. Not yet. I spent weeks perfecting every detail of this day, ensuring that it would be a memory neither of them could ever erase. I smile as my best friend Karen leans in, whispering something about how glowing I look. Glowing. That's what they see. A woman basking in the joy of impending motherhood. A wife showered in love and celebration. I set my glass down carefully, watching as she reaches for another canapé, laughing at some joke my brother just made. David chuckles, eyes crinkling at the corners. They think they're safe. They think I haven't noticed the stolen glances, the brief touches, the way his voice softens when he says her name. They have no idea what's coming. A spoon taps against a glass, the delicate chime pulling everyone's attention. David stands beside me, grinning, his arms sliding around my waist like second nature. He loves this. being the center of attention, the golden boy, the doting father-to-be. He clears his throat, and the room hushes, expectant. I smile up at him, feeling the weight of his palm against my hip, steady, grounding. If he notices the slight rigidity in my posture, he doesn't show it. Or maybe he does and chooses to ignore it, just like he's ignored all the cracks beneath this perfect picture we've painted. We just want to thank you all for being here today, he begins, his voice warm, filled with the right amount of gratitude, the right dose of sentimentality. It means the world to us, and we can't wait to share this next chapter of our lives with you. A chorus of awes ripples through the crowd, and I feel eyes on me, waiting for my response. I nod, placing a hand on my stomach, playing my part flawlessly. From across the room, I see her watching. She leans against the kitchen island, a glass of wine cradled in her hand, lips curled into a smile that's almost too content. I wonder what she's thinking, if she's recalling the stolen moments with David, if she believes this entire day is hers to enjoy, as if it's just another step toward whatever twisted fantasy they've built together. My fingers twitch at my side. I exhale slowly, keeping my expression soft, pleasant. Now, David continues, turning toward me, I think it's time for the big reveal, don't you? Cheers and claps fill the air, excitement mounting. He presses a kiss to my temple, his breath warm against my skin. I don't react. I just smile, lifting my chin as my gaze locks onto hers. The knife gleams on the table beside the cake, untouched, waiting. My heart pounds. They think this is about the baby. They have no idea. I wasn't always like this. I wasn't always the woman who smiles while plotting destruction, who holds her rage steady like a candle in the wind, letting it burn without ever letting it consume. But betrayal has a way of reshaping you, of chiseling away the softness until only something sharp remains. It started with a whisper, an offhand comment from a friend, a lingering glance that lasted a second too long. Have you noticed how close they've gotten? She asked, swirling her drink, her eyes flicking toward David and Karen across the room. At first, I brushed it off. I had to. Trust is a delicate thing, and once you start questioning, once you let doubt in, it seeps into everything. But then came the late-night texts, the moments when his phone would light up at odd hours, the way he turned his body just slightly when reading them, the missed calls, the unexplained absences, the way his touch on my skin grew more absent-minded, more rehearsed. David has always been a careful man, meticulous even. But the thing about secrets is that the weight of them eventually makes you careless. So I watched. I listened. I became the quiet observer, collecting details like fragments of a puzzle, piecing them together in the silence of my own mind. The perfume that wasn't mine lingering on his coat. The dinners he claimed were just work that stretched into the late hours of the night. And Karen, always around, always close. I let them believe I was oblivious. I let them keep their little stolen moments, their hushed conversations, because I knew something they didn't. I knew this day would come. Doubt is a slow poison. It doesn't kill you outright. It seeps into your bloodstream, lingers in your thoughts, changes the way you move through the world. I stopped sleeping well. I'd wake in the middle of the night, the bed too cold on his side, the silence stretching too long before I'd hear the soft creak of the front door. His excuses were always smooth, perfectly rehearsed. Late meeting. Got caught up with work. You were sleeping so soundly I didn't want to wake you. Lies spill easier when you've had time to perfect them. But the thing about lying is it's a habit, and like any habit, it leaves patterns. I started to notice them. The careful erasing of messages, the sudden need to shower as soon as he walked through the door, the way his kisses felt more like obligation than desire. I knew his tells better than he did, the way he ran a hand through his hair when he was cornered, the half-second delay before he answered a question, calculating his response. He thought he was being careful. He thought I was the fool. The funny thing is, I let him believe it. I played the devoted wife, the trusting woman who never doubted, never questioned. I let Karen believe it too. I let them think they were getting away with it, that their stolen moments, their whispered meetings were theirs alone because I was waiting. Timing is everything in betrayal. Too soon, and they have a chance to spin it, to weave another lie, to escape the fall. No, I needed the perfect moment. A moment where they couldn't run, couldn't deny, couldn't twist the truth into something palatable. So I planned. I let them dig their own graves, let them bask in their deception, never realizing I was the one holding the shovel. I remember the moment everything clicked. The exact second suspicion hardened into certainty. It was a Thursday, nothing special. I was folding laundry in the bedroom, his shirts crisp and familiar in my hands, when his phone lit up on the nightstand. Just a name, just a message preview too small to read. But I knew. I knew. My heart didn't race, my hands didn't tremble. Instead, there was a chilling sort of calm, the kind that comes when your worst fears stop being fears and become facts. I didn't touch the phone. I didn't need to. Instead, I walked to the mirror and looked at myself, really looked at the woman staring back, lips pressed into a thin line, eyes hollow in a way I hadn't noticed before. How long had I been shrinking? How long had I been pretending I didn't see it, didn't feel it? I thought about confronting him right then, tearing through the lies, forcing the truth into the open. But what good would that do? He'd deny it, he'd twist it, he'd say it was nothing, that I was imagining things, that I was crazy. No, I needed something undeniable, something I could drop at his feet and watch him crumble under the weight of it. I started small, checking our shared accounts, scrolling through old photos, reading the way his messages to me had changed over time. Less warmth, less urgency. The love that once bled through every word now felt like a shadow of what it had been. And then I found it. The proof. Buried in a hidden album, tucked away like some dirty little secret, as if I'd never think to look. I stared at the images, grainy photos taken in dim lighting, a hotel room I didn't recognize, a woman I knew too well. I sat there, holding the phone in my hands, feeling nothing. No anger, no tears, just a slow, deliberate kind of acceptance. This wasn't a nightmare, it was real. And so was the plan forming in my mind. The knife feels heavier than it should in my hands. Maybe it's the weight of the moment pressing down on me, the knowledge that once this cake is cut, there is no going back. David stands beside me, his smile wide, effortless, completely unaware of the ruin he's about to taste. The guests are gathered close, their eyes alight with anticipation, waiting for the grand reveal. A boy or a girl, blue or pink, a life beginning. I inhale deeply, letting the hum of the room wash over me. My mother's voice, sweet and warm, urging me to make a wish before we cut the cake. The laughter of my sister-in-law, the excited murmurs of friends leaning in to capture the moment on their phones. But my gaze finds her. She stands near the back, her fingers curled around the stem of her wine glass, a soft, satisfied smile playing at the corners of her lips. Does she think this is her secret to hold? That I haven't spent months unraveling every deception, every stolen touch, every whispered promise made behind my back? I turn to David and hand him the knife. You do it, I say, my voice steady, sweet. He grins, taking it from me with an exaggerated flourish, soaking in the attention he lives for moments like this. The center of admiration, the perfect husband, the soon-to-be father glowing with pride. He presses a kiss to my cheek before lowering the blade into the frosting. One slice, then another, the room holds its breath. The first piece tilts slightly, the cake parting to reveal not pink, not blue, but white sheets of paper, folded neatly, stacked high. They spill onto the table, a cascade of damning evidence. Screenshots of texts, hotel confirmations, photos he thought had been hidden. A silent moment stretches impossibly long. Confusion shifts to realization. Gasps ripple through the crowd. Someone drops a fork. My mother covers her mouth with a trembling hand. And then Karen sees it, sees herself. The silence is deafening, a thick, suffocating pause where the world seems to hold its breath, teetering between disbelief and devastation. I don't move. I don't blink. I just watch as David's expression shifts. His smile falters first, then stiffens, then vanishes entirely as his eyes flicker downward, scanning the scattered sheets of paper. His fingers twitch at his sides. His throat bobs with a swallow. He looks up at me, searching, pleading, but I only tilt my head, waiting. A soft murmur rises from the guests, a low hum of confusion giving way to something sharper. What is this? What does it mean? Karen hasn't moved. She's staring at the table, her wine glass frozen halfway to her lips, her knuckles white around the stem. It takes her a moment to process it, to see beyond the horror and recognize the images, the texts. Hers. And then it happens. The sharp inhale, the way her entire body tenses like she's been doused in ice water. No, she starts, her voice barely a whisper. But the denial dies in her throat. There's nothing to say, nothing that could make this not what it is. David finally finds his voice. This isn't. His hands reach for the papers, scrambling to gather them as if he can erase the truth by hiding the evidence. His panic is setting in now, wild and desperate, his face draining of color as he turns toward me. Baby, please. I smile, and that's what terrifies him the most. I don't move. I don't speak. I just let the weight of the moment settle, let him flounder in it, drown in it. His hands tremble as he fumbles with the papers, as if he can shove the truth back inside the cake, as if he can uncut it, undo it, rewind time to 5 minutes ago when he was still the golden husband, the glowing father-to-be. But there is no going back. The whispers grow louder, sharp edges slicing through the stunned silence. My mother is shaking her head, pressing a hand to her temple as if this is all just a misunderstanding. My sister-in-law is already backing away from the table, eyes darting between David and Karen like she's watching a train wreck in slow motion. And Karen looks paralyzed, her breathing shallow, her skin draining of color. Her fiancé, because oh yes, she had one too, is staring at her now, confusion hardening into something darker. What the hell is this? His voice cuts through the air, and for the first time, I see the cracks in her carefully curated facade. Her lips part, but no words come out. David takes a shaky step toward me, his voice low, urgent. We need to talk. Alone. His fingers reach for my wrist, but I step back before he can touch me. I won't give him that. I won't give him the privilege of whispering apologies, of spinning stories, of bargaining for a way out. No, I say, my voice steady, ringing clear over the noise. We talk here, in front of everyone, just like you wanted. His breath catches. He knows what I mean. The air is thick, suffocating with the weight of too many eyes. Everyone is watching, frozen between horror and fascination, trapped in the spectacle of a perfect life unraveling before them. David looks around wildly, searching for an escape, a lifeline, anything to anchor himself in this storm. But there's nothing, just truth, bare and brutal, laid out in black and white for everyone to see. Please, he tries again, his voice cracking, barely more than a whisper. Let's just go somewhere private. We can fix this. I almost laugh. Fix this? As if there's a version of reality where this isn't what it is. As if all it would take is a quiet conversation, a well-placed excuse. And suddenly, none of these people, his family, our friends, would remember the sickening weight of betrayal that hangs in the air. My mother's voice cuts through the tension, shaking, hesitant. Sweetheart. I glance at her, see the plea in her eyes, the desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, this isn't as bad as it looks. That maybe I'll be the woman they expect me to be, the wife who forgives, who endures, who smooths over the cracks and pretends they don't exist. I won't. I turn back to him, and my voice is cold when I speak. You want privacy? I take a step closer, my words low, measured, controlled. Did you think about privacy when you booked those hotel rooms? When you sent those messages? When you sat across from me at dinner, kissed me goodnight, and then went to her? A collective gasp ripples through the room. Karen makes a strangled noise, finally snapping out of her paralysis. This isn't fair, she chokes, but her fiancé cuts her off. Shut up, he growls finally. Something shatters. The room is spiraling now. Conversations overlap, voices rising, the energy shifting from stunned silence to raw, unfiltered chaos. David exhales sharply, rubbing a hand over his face like he can erase this moment, like he can wake up from whatever nightmare I forced him into. But I see it. The panic tightening his jaw, the way his fingers twitch at his sides. He's losing control, and he knows it. You're blowing this out of proportion, he says finally, desperation bleeding into his voice. We can talk about this. Just us. I let out a soft, humorless laugh. Us? The word tastes foreign now, ridiculous. You mean the us you swore meant everything to you? The us you betrayed over and over again? I shake my head, the disgust curling in my chest. Tell me, was there ever a moment you felt guilty? Or did the lying just get easier? The weight of my words lands hard, and for a second he falters. He doesn't have an answer, because we both know the truth. And then Karen. She steps forward, eyes wide, pleading, reaching for control of a situation that's slipping faster than she can grasp. She swallows, voice shaking. I never meant for this to happen. A slow blink. I tilt my head, studying her as if I'm looking at something foreign, something fascinating in its audacity. You never meant for this to happen? I repeat the words, sharp, dissecting. What part? The part where you slept with my husband? The part where you let me call you my friend? Her fiancé shifts beside her, his face stone, his hands clenched into fists. You lied to me, he mutters under his breath, his voice dark, heavy. Karen turns to him, frantic. No, baby, I love you. He steps back like she's poison. Don't, he snaps. Don't you dare call me that. The tears finally spill down her cheeks, and I watch, detached, as she unravels in real time. But this isn't my burden anymore. I just step aside and let the fire spread. I don't feel sorry for her. I don't feel sorry for any of them. If anything, I feel lighter, like I've been carrying the weight of this betrayal for so long that my shoulders forgot what it was like to be free. David is still reaching, still clawing for control, but the cracks in his mask are widening. This doesn't change anything, he mutters under his breath, too low for anyone but me to hear. His voice is tight, angry, cornered. We can fix this. You don't want to throw everything away over... I step closer, just enough that only he can hear me now. I already did, I whisper, my voice steady, final. Understanding dawns in his eyes, sharp and instant. He knows. His brows draw together, his lips part slightly. What did you do? I don't answer. Not yet. I turn instead, addressing the room, my voice even, my posture calm, so much calmer than he deserves. I'm sure you all have questions, I say, but I'm afraid I don't have time for them. I've been busy. I reach into my bag and pull out the final piece, the last little dagger in this carefully orchestrated execution. A thick manila envelope. I hear his breath hitch before I even open it. Oh, now you understand. I hold it up for everyone to see, flipping it open with deliberate care. While my husband was busy sneaking around behind my back, I continue, my tone as smooth as silk, I was preparing for the inevitable. I pull out the papers, my smile widening. This is a divorce agreement. Everything's already in motion. Oh, and just in case you were wondering, I turned back to him, my voice dipping lower, slower. I've already emptied the accounts. You know, the ones in my name. The color drains from his face. Checkmate. David stares at the papers in my hands, his breathing shallow, his face frozen, somewhere between fury and disbelief. He doesn't move, doesn't blink, like if he stays perfectly still, he can make this moment disappear. But reality is relentless. I am relentless. You... His voice cracks, and I watch him struggle to pull himself back together, to find some shred of control in the chaos I've unleashed. You can't just... I already did. I cut him off, flipping the stack of documents closed with a soft thwack. Filed last week. You should be getting served any day now, but I figured I'd save you the suspense. I tilt my head, feigning thoughtfulness. It's ironic, really. You spent months lying to my face, and yet somehow, I'm the one who got ahead of you. The room is thick with tension, thick with consequences. His mother, oh, his precious mother, is standing off to the side, hands clasped to her chest, her expression shifting from shock to shame to disappointment. Oh my God, she whispers, barely audible over the murmurs. What have you done? I almost want to laugh. What he's done? That's the question. Now that's what finally breaks her. Not the affair, not the months of deception. This. I glance at Karen. No, not Karen. His lover. Her hands are shaking. Her mascara is smudging. Her carefully curated, polished image is crumbling right in front of me, in front of everyone. She wipes her cheeks with the back of her hand, blinking rapidly, her mind racing for a way out. But there isn't one. Not this time. Her fiancé steps forward now, his jaw tight, his fingers curled into fists at his sides. And you, he says, his voice low, seething, directed only at her. How long? She opens her mouth, then closes it, then tries again. It wasn't like that, I swear. His laugh is bitter, sharp. Oh, then what was it like? The silence between them is suffocating. She has nothing. I take a slow breath, letting the satisfaction settle in my bones. This was never about revenge. Not really. This was about truth, about making sure they saw what they had done, what they had lost. And now I walk away. I place the papers down on the table beside the ruined cake, smoothing my hands over my dress as I straighten up. My voice is light, almost amused when I say my final words. I came here to reveal a life. Instead, I buried a marriage. And with that, I turn. I don't run. I don't hesitate. I walk, steady, certain, unshaken, right out the front door. I don't need to look back. I already know what I've left behind.